Hey, welcome back to another episode of Tech Talk. I am your host, Jeff Hootselle, Chief Cloud Officer with Auditmacs. For those of you who've watched Tech Talk before, you know this is a show where we talk to IT leaders and subject matter experts in the technology space. We'll talk about current events and some of the great things that they're seeing happening out there today. And today is no different. We are joined by the Vice President of IT with Teach for America, Bala Balasubranian. How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you, Jeff. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. So, hey, for folks that are not familiar with Teach for America, maybe just at the start, you can give us a little bit of background on the organization and what your focus is.
Sure. Teach for America operates in the K through 12 education system. We are a mission-oriented organization. Our mission is to eliminate the educational inequity in this country. We've been doing it for the past 30 years. And we hire potential leaders who are passionate about our mission, place them in underserved classrooms across the country is the way, and we train them as to be teachers and then place them in classroom across the country is the way we do it. So that's kind of the high-level overview of what Teach for America stands for and what we do.
Yeah, it's obviously a fantastic organization. You know, I've got 2 school-age kids, so we're passionate about their education, and there is kind of that divide right now. You mentioned that kind of educational inequality, and you hear a lot about the digital divide, just access to technology and things like that. So I'm curious to get your perspective, kind of given what we're going through now with COVID-19 and a lot of the school children being forced into kind of remote learning. How is that affecting those folks today? Is that kind of exacerbating that inequality that already exists, or what's your perspective on that?
It is definitely exacerbating the inequality that already exists, like especially in the underserved communities we operate. Things like basic access to internet is not a given. We take for granted in the urban areas. So our students come into the classroom, get more education. It's easy to say, oh, go remote, use this online channels, but it's not that easy. Some of our students in the communities don't have access to Wi-Fi outside of the school. So it's making it increasingly challenging for us to make a difference and provide quality education. Our core members in the classrooms are coming up with innovative ways, doing iPhone, FaceTime, whatever possible to do that. But it has definitely exacerbated the very inequality we are trying to solve.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a serious concern. I mean, there's one aspect of this of sending people home, and you do have innovation and things that comes from this, right? You're kind of forced to come up with creative things to do, like iPhone conferencing and things like that. But I think it's certainly a challenge to kind of continue to look at. And I know you guys are big also on kind of data analytics and looking at that from the business and how that'll support your mission. Talk a little bit about that and what you guys are doing in that field today.
We are a data-driven organization, starting from how we hire people into our core. We call our incoming teachers as core members. So we do have a data-driven approach to see, hey, who are the people who are very passionate about it and has the leadership potential to endure through the inequalities that they're going to face in the classroom. So we are into a lot of predictive modeling. So we collect a lot of data on our incoming applicants, and we look at their performance in the classroom and then come back and update our selection criteria to say, hey, can we do more? Can we find more qualified candidates? Who can make a difference in the classroom? It's like a feedback loop that we use data for. So we have a predictive model based on the past data, which keeps on getting updated more on the data that we collect in the classrooms. And then finally, we see, hey, people have gone through our program as an alums, what they are doing. And we are trying to take that data and take it all the way back into our recruitment stream and say, hey, if we select an applicant, what is the prediction that they're going to continue to be passionate about our mission and serve our kids in the long run when they become alums of our program. So it's a predictive, cyclical, continuous feedback loop model that we have built, and we rely on that heavily to run our program.
Yeah, I got to imagine that's really important, obviously. I mean, it's one thing that you have a great mission, but to find the right people to kind of execute that mission and keep them engaged and keep them passionate and know they're the kind of folks that are going to really be driven to help these kids is really important. I'm curious, as you look kind of forward and kind of look out over the next year, 2 years, and none of us really know what the future is going to hold. How do you think all this is going to change the education environment? It's kind of how we approach
I think we are up for a lot of change here. So we still need to figure out, technology is not something that has penetrated into our classrooms. Like you see pockets of it. People use technology aid to do things. But things are going to change. Like the education system is going to change. Instead of students coming to a classroom on a fixed schedule, to education going to the kids to serve them where they want it, when they want it. This is the paradigm shift we think is possible. This COVID crisis has created. I see that as an opportunity as well. But on the other hand, it's also how do you create a sense of community? Like the classroom is also a place where kids come in, have the sense of community to do things. That's been broken right now. And um, of course, if things get to normal, schools open, that's not going to be the case. But if we want to continue this online version of learning, how are we going to give kids that experience, which is also important, is going to be a challenge. That's my point of view.
Yeah, I think it's really the engagement piece. I mean, that's one thing kind of almost nobody can really account for yet is the social aspect of it and the mental health aspect of, it's one thing to have the technology and the tools available. That's obviously a huge thing and it's something we've got to overcome as well. But then at the same time, how do we keep kids engaged learning in that type of environment, where they're not getting necessarily that immediate feedback from an educator, a teacher, or even their classmates? How do you keep them involved and keep them excited about what they're doing and not have them get frustrated? Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about kind of yourself. So you've been in technology for a while now, right? You're obviously the vice president of IT with that organization. How did you first get your start with technology?
I started as a programmer. That's been my journey into the tech space. I've done that for close to a decade, then became a tech lead architect kind of a role, developing a lot of solutions, custom built solutions. Then I made a career shift. I moved from technology development to technology management. I was more curious about, hey, creating all these technologies are great, but there needs to be a focus on this technology being used the right way. I saw a gap in there. So like a decade into my career, I made a shift into technology management, and I've been in that space it's been close to a decade now, being in technology management. My primary passion and focus is like creation of technology is great, but how can we make sure it's used in the right way and it creates the right impact for the organization? That's been my focus in the recent days.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's a valuable resource. I think we find with a lot of folks is it's one thing to like technology for technology's sake, but when you can connect it to that overall mission and how the business or the organization is going to use that and help it flourish, I think that's a valuable skill. So Bala, if people want to find out more about Teach for America, it's obviously a great organization. Where can they go to learn more about you guys?
Our website is a great resource, teachforamerica.org. It has a lot of information about what we do, how we do our program, and how people can support us. It's a lot of valuable resources in there, and people can find out more about that in our website.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Bala, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. We appreciate you having on. Stay safe, obviously, where you're at up there.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
You got it. All right, and thank you guys for joining us today on Tech Talk. We'll look forward to seeing you on our next episode. Stay safe.